One Piece chapter 1071, and man, Oda was not kidding when he said that this was going to be a Royal Rumble, because that's what things are shaping up to be right now. It's almost like the beginning of the Stampede movie where we had all these different characters show up, different plot lines being made, and sort of everything converging into one thing, and that's what I'm getting off of this. And this is so good because these are characters that we're really interested in, characters that haven't gotten a lot of shine in the series, even though they're supposed to be very important to the story. And so this is honestly very exciting. Oda has definitely been on a roll ever since Egghead started, because this arc is shaping up to be one of the best arcs in One Piece right now. And it's very evident that Oda is having a lot of fun here, because I think this is the stuff that he's been waiting to draw for a very long time, because every chapter is just exciting. And of course, when it comes to delivering hype, Oda is definitely one of the best out there, because the hype that we're getting in this chapter and the ramifications of what it's going to lead to is insane. You know, things are getting serious when we start to see other characters in the middle of an arc and how their progression is going on. We're definitely at a point in the story where things are definitely stacking up, and I definitely cannot wait to see what Oda has in store for us. But before we keep going, guys, I'd appreciate it if you dropped a like on this video. Let's go for 500 likes. Subscribe if you're new here, and hit the bell if you want to get notified for future content. Now we're diving right into Garp versus more than likely Blackbeard, because this has insane ramifications as to what is to come. Now at the end of the chapter, we come to see that Garp has made his way to G14, and it would seem that he's looking for manpower in order to launch an attack against the Yonko. And it's funny because when he was talking to Doll, she mentions if he's cleared this with the upper brass, because you need special permission to actually do this, right? We saw this in Egghead Island with Rob Lucci. And Garp's response here is actually funny because he says, "Why would I?" And this is a very typical response from Garp, because we know that within the Marines, Garp is someone that doesn't like to be ordered around, right? And that's why he specifically chose to never become an admiral, because he didn't want to become subordinates to the Celestial Dragon, so he wanted to maintain some level of freedom within the Marines. And it would seem that when it came down to engaging things that would require permission from the higher ups, Garp would just go along and do his business without actually saying anything. So we're seeing that he's a Marine that pretty much does whatever he wants to do. And this is precisely what the Gorosei were talking about when it came down to Garp, because the reason that they still keep him around even though he disobeys orders was because of the legacy that was behind him, right? Garp is part of the reason many Marines joined the Navy, and so we see that he has that clout to do certain things without permission, because he's just that guy. And even Vice Admiral Dahl was like, how has this guy been able to keep that attitude as a Marine for this long? Because normally you would just follow status quo, but Garp is just a special exception. Now the purpose for all of this is to save Kobe from Blackbeard, and I find this very interesting that he's willing to do something like this for Kobe. And I think this is partly due to the fact that maybe he feels like he's responsible for delivering the next generation, and perhaps they might have seen something within Kobe, especially during the war in Marineford, in which, you know, Kobe had his moment, and I feel like that sort of resonated with Garp, and he definitely saw some potential within Kobe. And we'd also know that these two were trained by Garp early on in the story with Bogard and all of that, so it makes a lot of sense that Garp would be willing to do this. But launching an attack against a Yonko like Blackbeard is definitely insane, because yeah, a battle is about to take place. Garp versus Blackbeard is definitely one of the more unexpected matchups that we would think about in the story as of right now, but definitely interesting nonetheless, because this matchup is very unique, right? And something that's very important to point out is that Blackbeard is also with Kuzan, who was a former Marine, and we do know that Garp and Kuzan were somewhat close when he was in the Marines. And so this encounter is actually more interesting than we think. So we have two D showing up, Marshall D Teach and Monkey D Garp. So that's something in of itself that could be important, right? Them being from the D heritage or lineage. And then we have Garp's ties to Kuzan, which could be very important as well, because, you know, these two have a long history together. So I wonder how this is all going to play out, because I feel like Blackbeard is the type of individual to tell Kuzan to deal with Garp, right? Because that's definitely a characteristic within his nature to do something evil like that, right? To have the student go up against their master. So I honestly like where this is going. It is also interesting to note that Doll was saying that they were on their way to Egghead because Kizaru was going to launch an attack on Luffy, right? So there is still a possibility that Garp might actually go to Egghead before going to Hachinosu, because all of these islands are sort of close together in proximity. So a lot can come out of this. Now moving back to Egghead Island. Now for the most part, both sides seems to be in a deadlock, so nobody is really doing anything because both sides are planning on what to do next. Now, with the Seraphims back on Rob Lucci's side of things, this is definitely pushing some pressure on Vegapunk because now they have a lot of firepower with them, right? Of course, including Rob Lucci as well. And so here they're essentially discussing their plan of action in which they want someone to hold CP0 off while they escape. And it would seem that Vegapunk did have another ally on the island that we weren't aware of, and apparently they are willing to help in this situation. Now, as to who they are, we aren't sure, but they do seem to be very powerful, and they do seem to be special cases because it would seem that they've been hiding within Vegapunk's lab this whole time away from the world government, and if the world government finds them again, it's going to be an issue. So this is a very interesting sort of reveal because I didn't think there would be anyone else willing to help them, or at least they didn't have any more manpower with them. But it seems like they do have other individuals that are willing to help and individuals that were sort of indebted to Vegapunk. So I do wonder who these individuals are given that they are hiding from the world government. Now, while they were in a deadlock with CP0, something weird does happen in which the Frontier Dome actually turned off. And this is especially strange because none of them were aware of what just happened. And so this is sort of raising the possibility of maybe someone backstabbing them later on because no one was aware of this. So it has to be someone in the covert. But this would essentially allow CP0 to invade for a little time before they get the systems back on. And so it would seem that Rob Lucci, Kaku, and Stussy actually made it through. And on their way there, they seem to spot the Straw Hat ship in which they want to destroy because they are getting rid of all the exits. And so Kaku uses a Tempest Kick, which was then blocked by Zoro, who just woke up. And of course, this is a tie back to NES Lobby with Kaku and Zoro because we just had Luffy and Rob Lucci. So it makes a lot of sense that Oda wants this encounter to happen again to just give that nostalgia of the pre-time skip and to definitely have these two interact given that they've returned both stronger than they were before. So it would seem that Kaku and Zoro is the matchup here, even though Zoro definitely way stronger than Kaku, I feel like. But again, given that Stussy and Rob Lucci are in the Frontier Dome now, another battle with Luffy more than likely will take place, or maybe Sanji actually fights Rob Lucci, who knows. And that's if Kizaru doesn't show up on time, because Kizaru should be showing up pretty soon, and that's where things are going to get a bit more serious for the Straw Hats. Now, we do also see Bonnie chasing Vegapunk in this chapter, and again, she's asking for Vegapunk to turn Kuma back to the way he was, and apparently it seems like there's a reason he can't. I'm actually wondering where this whole Bonnie and Kuma plotline is heading towards, because now Oda hasn't really highlighted her ever since that little brief info we got on Kuma. So I wonder where this is all headed. Now, we do know that Kuma is very relevant, and in this chapter we come to see where he actually teleported to. Now, initially I thought he was going to Egghead Island because I thought that he was aware of Bonnie's presence in Egghead, but again, they do mention that Kuma has essentially zero rationale at this point, right? He's not even sane, and so of course he wouldn't remember things of the time when he was human, or at least when he had his brain. But it would seem that Kuma is heading back to Marijoa for some reason. I'm not exactly sure why. Now, we know that he was recently with the Celestial Dragons before they saved him, so maybe he's going back there to become a slave again because he was programmed that way. We're not entirely sure, but I do think that Oda has something special going on here with Kuma. There is a possibility that Dragon could be following Kuma right now. We're not sure, but it is definitely very interesting for sure to have Kuma go back to Marijoa where Sabo was, but it is very interesting. Now, we do also get to see Kid in this chapter as well, which was definitely due because we saw Law, and so we were expecting to see Kid as well to sort of see his progress and how things were going for him. And with Kid, it seems that he's finally made it to Elbaf. So technically he's sort of one step ahead of the Straw Hats in terms of getting to the next lore piece, so that's very interesting. Now, Kid for the most part is the prototypical pirate, right? He barges in the door, so I wonder how they're going to receive Kid in Elbaf here, because for the most part he doesn't have any ties to Elbaf in comparison to Luffy, but he is here a lot earlier than usual, so when the Straw Hats do come here, things might have changed. It is also interesting to point out that Kid was looking for the person marked by flames, and based on how things are going right now, it's looking like that individual is so, and Kid is going to have an encounter with him in Elbaf here. I think that's what makes a lot of sense right now, but again, the person marked by flames could be another person, who knows. But based on what we have right now, it's definitely Jaguar D Sol. So this is a very interesting turn of events. Kid getting to Elbaf before Luffy, that could definitely change some things up. But this chapter was very exciting and definitely a hype way to end off 2022. 2022. So we're definitely in for some fire in 2023, especially given Oda's recent interview where he says that, you know, a lot of things are going to be happening moving forward. So again, I'm excited, and you guys should be too, because we're approaching that end game stuff, right? But yeah, overall, this chapter is amazing. Now, that's pretty much it for this review. I'd appreciate it if you dropped a like on this video, comment down below what you guys think, subscribe if you're new here, hit the bell if you want to get notified for future content on this channel. You can follow me on Twitter at Ferrospace, but it is Ferro, guys, and I will see you folks later. Peace.